Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you have a chance to listen to this message. I have the pleasure to be able to meet with a individual. His name is Blake. Blake founded BNN, CEO of it, Army Ranger. Dude has a heart of gold and is one of those guys that you really cherish the moment with. He has the ability to make you feel seen, even though he has a bunch of stuff going in the back of his mind. He's able to stay focused. I find him to be a huge pleasure and a very, very valuable asset to all the veterans and their families here in Montana and the surrounding areas. Blake, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for a way too kind of introduction.
Well, that's how I view you, man. I look up to you in a lot of ways. It's what I've seen you do for so many different veterans, the really generosity between what you and Mike have done for so many people, not just veterans, but actually what they've done for the family. The angles of what you see, most people actually, unfortunately, get casted aside based off of disability rating or their homeless status or the addiction status. But you two rise to the occasion, especially you, and it's always a great time to be able to sit with you and talk.
I appreciate that, and couldn't do what we do at Veterans Navigation Network if it wasn't for Mike and the rest of our team. We're up to 7 team members right now, and only one of them isn't a veteran, and she's a military mom, so we keep her around.
Yeah. Your team is absolutely amazing. Like Eddie, Christina, the rest of them that I haven't really had much of a chance to sit with them and just chat, but it's just a blessing. So Blake, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, or yeah, let's hear a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah. So born in Wyoming, uh, Lander, Wyoming, just right at the base of the Wind River Mountain Range, right bordering a Native American reservation there. And I definitely took it for granted. I mean, being able to go 30 minutes any direction, be on public land, and go hunting, fishing, hiking, shooting, whatever I wanted to do. And I did not realize how good I had it until I ended up joining the military. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty simple childhood. I mean, my dad did construction. My mom, worked for the city as a dispatcher for a while, as a dog catcher. Different dog catcher story is a whole different thing. At one point, it was a tough. That was like one of the biggest sticking points of my childhood. Is my dad is not like dogs. He grew up on a farm where he ended up eating anything you named, and except for maybe I don't know, he ate dogs. I grew up not, but and my mom loved dogs. And so, as the dog catcher, she hated putting those dogs down if they, didn't get rescued or whatever. And so, at one point, we had 10 dogs, like no kidding, 10 dogs that were rescues. And that did not go well for their marriage. Didn't go well for our household, other than we had dogs that we could lean on for comfort while the fighting was going on in the background. So, my dad, alcoholic, actually ended up passing while I was in the military from alcoholism. He actually got offered a liver, which they normally wouldn't do, as he was kind of on his deathbed, all jaundiced and everything. I'd just flown in from Fort and they offered him a liver. Said, we normally wouldn't do this unless you assured us you were going to quit drinking,
Mm.
but we are just going to offer it to you. And he said, well, thanks. And it was basically his way of killing himself without, using a firearm or something like that. So that was interesting growing up with that kind of uh, storm over. I mean, it was a lot of fights around alcohol and abuse there with my dad. My mom, you know, just great person, but had her own ways of coping with that stress and the life that we kind of had chosen. So yeah, I know graduated high school early to join the military, maybe a little bit to escape some of that, but also to just serve my country. I felt a lot of push, I guess, to join after 9/11, even though I was still in grade school when 9/11 happened. So yeah, joined the military, and I had a mentor growing up who was a special forces guy, had gone to Ranger school, and he was kind of directing me on what did I want to do, and I knew I wanted to do some direct action, and he was like, "Well, you can go special forces and kind of focus on training, the indigenous people if you go to a country like Iraq or Afghanistan, do some direct action stuff still, but." um, He said, if you really want to do direct action, then go to the Ranger Regiment. And so that's what I signed up for, an option 40 contract, and went straight out of high school. I graduated high school in January, technically, uh, and basic training by February.
Well, that was a lot of your childhood in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, your face lit up when you started talking about your mom being a dog catcher.
Mm.
So, as a little kid, I would think that would probably be one of the coolest jobs for a parent to have. Like, oh, my mom is over there taking care of these animals. I understand that they're fighting. God, we got 10 animals right here that we could just kick a legs up on, put a head on there.
Yeah.
Like, I know like some of my fondest memories when I was a kid, and even when I was adult, it was just putting a dog down on the ground and then laying my head out across their belly, and then all of a sudden they would come over the head, you just like push it, like, no, you're my pillow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I loved having dogs. And I mean, I actually had a dog that I hadn't had when I was going through some stuff in the military. That dog actually got me through some bad stuff. So love them. And yeah, I loved that. In fact, one time my parents did get in a fight, and my dad drinking too much, and the cops came and everything. And I ended up, my mom, my brother, myself, and I think I'm 6 dogs, and throwing I think we left the cats at the house because my dad said, "I don't mind the cats, it's the dogs I hate. I'll kill them if you leave them here." But it was all 6 dogs and the three of us in a Chevy Citation parked on like a parking lot outside of a hotel because we couldn't afford the hotel, and stayed the night in that, and then went back home the next day like nothing had happened. So uh, I didn't mind sharing the back seat with the dogs, though. They kept me warm and nice and soft.
When you brought a thing up when you said that a dog saved your life. So Smokey, he was my husky, and he got him pretty much right after I got out of the Corps. And I remember hearing the stories from my ex-wife because I would get drunk a lot of nights and fall asleep. And when I would shake, the dog knew not to go near me, but would actually grab onto my ex and yank her out of bed or really wake her up to say, hey, s- unfortunately, when we sleep, Mr. Hyde likes to play, and he was protecting my wife more than me. And I don't know if the dog knew that I pretty much loved my ex more than I loved myself at that time. And it's interesting how the dogs are able to really sense and be able to give to us the things that we need more than what we're able to articulate or even know that we need. But it's when you talked about the other thing where your dad and your mom were getting into fights. Like I remember my dad would used to leave as well, and when they used to actually get angry, it was uh it was interesting. It was like you expect the household to go back to the same, but nobody's doing any triage on it. It's just like, hey, I'm a young kid. This is normal. But at the same time, you're like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden you get a little bit older, you hear stories, and even going to the army, like it's not unfamiliar for a lot of soldiers to go through it, and especially special forces and special operations. A lot of the individuals that go there, they're trying to escape where they were. And unfortunately, that's part of the journey a lot of us actually take. And but before we jump too far into the army, more about your childhood. So I know you were saying that your dad passed away from alcohol. Was that a lot of your childhood?
Yeah, I mean, he tried. So I mean, my dad did have a lot of kind of trauma and stuff that happened, and I mean, uh, he had always drank, but he had a brother that was killed in a really terrible construction accident. Somebody didn't hook up a trailer right down a hill and crushed him. I mean, just really tragic, unexpected, left behind a couple kids, my cousins, and yeah, so I mean, that was super hard on my dad. And I had another brother that a couple of years later, I have it backwards. Actually, the other brother died. They ended up saying it was by suicide. There's, kinds of rumors and things, but basically a BB gun to the eye, um, and that killed him, whether it was suicide or not. But, losing both of his brothers, and then the thing that really kind of took him over the edge was his mother, um, who kind of kept him going after my parents divorced and everything. She died pretty unexpectedly from lymphatic cancer, and so wasn't quite back to back to back, but he was kind of holding it together after the first two. But for that last one, that was pretty well the nail in the coffin. So uh, yeah, it was awesome. In fact, he did try to get sober after the two brothers died, and I got to see some pretty extreme effects of alcohol withdrawal, to the point he even got diagnosed with schizophrenia. Um, and then after going through those withdrawals for months, they actually said, no, you don't have schizophrenia. It's just alcohol withdrawals, still the effects of the alcohol withdrawals. And just seeing that has given me appreciation, I guess, for people who are working to overcome addiction, to give them a little bit of grace. Because it's not like you just quit drinking 3 days later, you're sober on your way to healing. It's a lifelong battle for sure. So, but just seeing that side of things, I mean, I've definitely had some anger towards my dad for kind of abandoning. Like I said, he got offered the liver and didn't take it. And at that time, I had just gotten married. So I've had some very, you know, a lot of disappointment towards him in that sense. But something I'll never forget is we were hunting together, and he hadn't had a beer that morning, and he was shaking as we're driving up like these really steep mountains, and like you're looking over the edge as we're driving, and get going. It's 6 in the morning, whatever. So he hadn't had a beer yet. Well, coming back down, it was 10 in the morning, and he's drinking a beer on the way down, and stone cold as a cucumber. And my mom's like, he's been drinking and you're not worried now, but I want to get out of the car on the way up. And I was like, well, yeah, I just had a beer. He's nice and calm. So I mean, it's crazy what too much of something like alcohol or too much of really anything becomes that addiction, how much of an impact it can have, not just mentally, but physically on a person.
Like we were talking before we jumped on being live, it's a lot of times the gateway, or pretty much all the time, the gateway to addiction is trauma. And especially a lot of guys, and being from Wyoming, it's, I give you guys a lot of kudos and ways, even I'm from the East Coast, but about the resiliency, the grit. But alcohol has been so normalized for years. After the prohibition went away, it's been like, hey, you got hurt, go drink a beer. Here's a shot of whiskey. If we're gonna actually, like you see in the cowboy movies, hey, you got shot with like a slug. Okay, we're gonna take a shot of whiskey and bite down on this. We're gonna actually pull it out and we're gonna pour some whiskey on it. And it's been so romanticized in a lot of different areas, and it's been overused. And it sucks that we unfortunately can't actually connect with a person, especially when they have that type of addiction. And what I also hear you saying is that the little Blake, the young Blake, kind of feels like, hey, my dad left me. But the older Blake, it's like, hey, I can understand it. And they're two different truths. And sometimes they have the opposing views on it, where we can be like, hey, you fucked up. You just left us. You weren't really around us even when you were around. And then all of a sudden, when you are now in the shoes that you're in, where you see people of all different walks of life, and you're able to meet them with compassion. Like, what do you do to actually help out the younger Blake when he actually comes up and saying, "Hey, this dude reminds me of my dad or reminds me of my mother"? Like, how do you actually be able to address those type of personal feelings that you have and being able to see the adults for just suffering?
I think it's for me, I try to keep those things separate. But I mean, when they do crop up, it really is how can I look through that lens for, maybe I'm not walking through their shoes where I've had, the addiction to marijuana or the, you know, uh, abusive kind of relationships like my dad had. But I can use that as a lens to see their situation and understand it's not like one day they just drank too much and it's just been a snowball ever since something happened to them. And just trying to look through that lens as I'm working with people is really, I think it's a tool. Like I wouldn't change anything that's happened in my life, either the good or the bad, just because it's given me the background to, do what I do now. And so even the military, like fracture my back, I had a lot of loss in that time, but I wouldn't take any of that back. I would do it all over again just because it's made me who I am today.
Yeah, it's interesting because how a lot of times we could feel like trauma, especially at a young age, and we can get stuck into a victim spiral. And this is not a shot at people. This is what we are able to feel like we can't overcome these obstacles. There are like clinical psychologists have talked about, for instance, like Carol Dweck having fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. When you have a growth mindset, you're looking for the failures. You're looking to see what you can learn from it. Fixed mindset is like you want to stay comfortable. You don't want anything to create these short, like little stifles. You have individuals like Angela Duckworth that talks about in the book Grit, where people that are more gritty are more resilient, like individuals that say are born with dyslexia. It's a huge obstacle to overcome, but when they're able to realize that, they're able to see, hey, I can overcome much more. And the more that you overcome, the more the challenges that you face. They're kind of like a little bit of rewards, but on top of it, you're able to lean back on it and say, hey, I've been able to overcome this. I can see that this has multiple angles, and it's not just one true angle. I know that you were talking about offline before about the addiction that your mom had, and like how marijuana can even actually be a way of escaping.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've seen just so many different sides of kind of the marijuana debate, I guess, if it's still a debate. But, some people think it is that tool that can help them with treatment. And from my personal experience with it, it's not been that, my mom, telling you about the story of as a kid, I had, saved up a few $100s, and one day I didn't have a bank account, so I go to my wallet, and my money's all gone. But there's an IOU for my mom saying, "Hey, I used the money to pay a mortgage." So I was like, "Okay, no big deal. She's going to pay me back." Well, never got paid back, and then fast forward 6 months later, it's like Christmas morning, and I go downstairs and super early, and I see my mom smoking marijuana, and I didn't know at the time that she did. And so it really stuck with me as a kid that like, man, you just borrowed money from a kid that money could have been, used for the rent, but instead, you know, you were buying marijuana, and it was almost, even though I'm sure she did use it to pay the mortgage, it was in my mind, it was like you used my money to buy marijuana. And so that stuck with me for a long time. And my mom and I have since reconciled on it and she, apologized. And fast forward from there, after the military, I actually had an experience where another person, an ex girlfriend, her friend, were talking about run down to Colorado before it was kind of more available, but run down to Colorado because it was legalized down there and wanted to go buy marijuana. Well, and like two sentences later, they're talking about how they can't afford diapers or wipes for their kid. And so it was just those kinds of experience have really given me a negative view about, substances, whether it is, I mean, especially marijuana, even though I know marijuana could probably be less bad than alcohol. but or in some cases it can be helpful because I know some people do use that as something to help them sleep or whatever. So that experience, and then I've got the other side where a guy that I did 3 deployments with to Afghanistan, uh, a month before he got out, he pissed on a piss test for marijuana, and he really was using it as a coping tool um, to deal with all the things that we had been through. And they actually extended him so they could break him down in rank, kick him out of the Rangers, and give him extra duty for 45 days. So he ended up getting extended, I think, 90 days just to do all that. And so what I would like to see, and now what I have an understanding for, is they should have sent him for treatment for PTSD instead of doing all that. But instead, they kicked him out, gave him another than honorable discharge, and he ended up homeless in Central Park in New York for a period of time. And so, I mean, just that understanding, and so relationship, I guess, around marijuana has kind of shaped me to now. Somebody uses it, I'm not going to say anything other than if it's that point of addiction where they're abusing it,
Mm-hmm.
I might ask if they do want to get off of it or something, but it's just a personal issue for me.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, totally get it. It's fair, and some people be like, well, and they'd be very so stifled into this belief of it's good or it's bad. Like Adam Grant wrote this book. It's called Think Again. It's about understanding the other person's perspective. It's called the Steelman argument, and actually understanding why are they doing it. Less harmful is a word that some people use to say, "Hey, I'm using marijuana because I'm getting off alcohol because it has less impact on my brain, has less impact on my organs." And people are like, "Well, you should just stop." And it's like, well, we're just not really communicating. We're not communicating about what's happening. Why are we using this? Why are we using the substance? Like I shared with you about my dad. He was a Vietnam vet. So my grandfather was a World War II vet. My great grandfather was a World War I vet. Then when they are actually taught at a younger age, hey, alcohol is a good way to be able to handle shit. And now say take alcohol out, put marijuana in there, and all of a sudden it's you're still using it to be able to cope with the reality and be able to deal with this undue amount of stress. Like where I look at stress, or especially like generational trauma or trauma that you actually endure, and it's like you have this cup and you can't deal with this little bit of extra stress, so you're using something for the instant gratification now that is actually causing it to go down, but it's just you're not dealing with it. You just keep compacting, compacting, compacting. And I've seen with marijuana, I remember actually having an argument with the psychologist, the one that really helped me out. And I had to admit to myself I was abusing it. I'm like, hey, doc, I'm using it to go to sleep. You're abusing it. I said, if I got a prescription for it, he said, you still be abusing it. And I couldn't understand it. And I was like fighting with this guy. And I'm like, I was so dead set on saying, hey, marijuana's the best. It's okay. It's actually like everything's getting legalized, all these other places. And but what it really helped me understand was I was using marijuana to help me sleep. But what I was doing was I was getting ready for my nightmares to suppress my dreams. Like alcohol and marijuana, when they actually help you sleep, what they're doing, they're not really sleeping. It's actually sedating you. So you're not actually processing your sleep cycles, the 1 to 4. And since you're not processing your REM cycles, like you get to stage 4, which would be REM, where you're not actually being able to decouple your emotions from your memories. But that's also what's causing you to pretty much say, hey, I'm going to drink or I'm going to smoke so I can go to sleep, because you're worried about that night. You're worried about what's actually going to happen. And I, for a while, would say, hey, you know what? My dad was abusing alcohol. I come home, there's no electricity on, there's no heat in the house. And I'd be like, why can't you just stop fucking drinking? Stop fucking gambling. And I'm like, why don't you care about your kids? And
Because there'd be a 24 pack or something like that. That was my experience too.
and it's like the kid, the inner kid, like the younger Blake or the younger Will is like resentful to our parents. But at this time, we don't have the emotional capacity to be able to change it. But looking at it like saying, "Hey, I hate this substance." It's an easy way to say, "Hey, I'm not understanding why you're using this." And I also believe in a lot of times, and this is why I'm getting this podcast out there, is that we don't give people the opportunity to be able to express their emotions.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you when you went to Rangers, say in the Marines, saying, "Oh, I'm sad," is actually a okay thing to say because at that time you have a job to do. You don't have a time to really move. You have a time to keep pushing. And so coming back to reality, if your drug of choice was say marijuana or alcohol, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. One of or my team leader actually got killed in Afghanistan, and it was, I mean, the very next day we were out on another mission, but almost with a vengeance, because of that. And there was no time. Just like you said, there was no time to mourn at all. I mean, we got back, I think a few tears were shed, and then it was right back to go do what we do. And so it was, um, yeah, it was very just, yeah, there's no time more. And, talking about men's mental health and normalizing it, I mean, we're taught from a young age that you internalize that stuff or you don't talk about it. My grandfather, World War II vet as well. And he drank his problems away. I think a lot of Montanans drink their problems away. Wyoming, kind of the old west, so to speak. I mean, that is the mentality is you don't talk about that stuff. And even my mom, for her, she was raised by that generation. So you don't talk about that stuff. You just deal with it and move on. And to me, there's like a middle ground. Like we can't be whiny or fall to that kind of victim mentality. But I think, well, I know for myself, like just talking about the things that have happened and almost that, I don't know if it would, you're the mental health professional, not me. So for me, it's like exposure therapy, just being exposed to it over and over again, but sharing the story and talking about what happened before. I not used to not be able to get through it once. And now I can, tell the story and I might shed a tear or something, but I can get through it. Whereas before, 10 years ago, I couldn't have. And so, uh, yeah, I think those places all have. I muted my phone when I come up. I think all those places have, all those things and experiences shape who we are. But I think it's just, yeah, how can we get somewhere in the middle where we're not falling victim to, the victim mentality or to our traumas, but also not just sucking it up, pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps. There's somewhere in the middle where we can do that and share our story and be better because of it.
So think about it in this way, and not the mental health professional yet in training. Um, the way that it was described to me, in the way that I understand it. So, for instance, I did cognitive processing therapy. I tried a different bunch of different modalities. Incorrect. I said I was trying them. I wasn't ready to really embrace what was the modalities up to that point. I didn't have the courage to. I didn't have a role model, and I didn't have somebody that I trusted. Like I actually called the psychologist at the end of it, and he was giving me the point. I said, "Dude, you my shepherd. You helped me lead through it." And I remember him actually tearing up from that. But when we have these relationships with a particular day, which we call an anniversary or a particular event, it becomes so overwhelming where we can't talk about this. When I think about what I went through, it was like I lived a moment, a fragmented time, which was April 8th, 2006. And it's when one of my buddies got shot. And I remember the whole vehicle ride back, how many vehicles we lit up, calling in the rules of engagement to back up to the COC. I was upset with the COC wanting this information in a timely manner because I'm like, hey, we're fucking dealing with shit. And how angry I was. And we went back out, like you said, with a vengeance. The guys that we left, they went in there and started fucking storming some houses. And they wanted to go take care of some shit. You just took one of ours. And that shaped my whole experience of the Marine Corps, it shaped my experience with relationships. I shut down emotionally. But what happened was I created the narrative in my brain that people would not understand how it is to see one of your friends bleeding out on a road over on the MSR, Michigan. And honestly, I didn't know how to articulate those feelings. I didn't, oh, I gotta love technology.
Yeah.
And it's when I actually started to do the cognitive processing, it was like writing it down. So now I'm not just thinking about it. And I was able to do it in a safe way, writing it down. And I was coached not to what to write, but to write. And then rereading it. And my brain started understanding the event differently. Because when I'm reading what I wrote, I'm reading an historical document.
Mm.
It's like reading about George Washington going across the Delaware. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's very different. But think about how George Washington understood it. Now think about what George Washington when he wrote it. It was a historical document at this time. And a lot of times our own traumas, we're reliving these things, these emotions, because we're not doing a bereavement to it. In a historical sense, has the emotion to it. And when we have that emotional sense to it, it makes it light up almost like we're there. And oh, I can only talk about this stuff when I'm drunk. Well, it's because you're dampening that emotional receptor. And you feel like if you cry, you're going to be judged about it. Right? When I learning a lot about crying, it's a physical response to an emotional reaction. And your body is trying to purge it. And when I did this psychedelic retreats, I was learning from Jared the way that our face has these shapes, the way it's concave, is that so we could be able to taste the salt off of our liquid. And when we actually feel it, we can feel the coldness soothing our face,
Hmm.
where we're just told to brush it away. Very similar to it. It's just like, can't show it, gotta keep moving. When we take the time out to mourn, and when we take the time out to just fall apart with people that we love and we respect, and they love and respect us to be able to accept us for our fragments of time instead of just as appearance of time. We're not able, we'll get stuck in this area and we say that we got to close this off. You can only know me with this mask on. And I agree with you about the victim mentality because a lot of times we become this persona. Oh, I'm an alcoholic, so I'm going to keep on drinking. That's what you're going to know me for. But it's better than you knowing me for my trauma or I am my trauma. No, that's just part of your story. That's part of the story that you want to highlight. So you're able to get those dopamine hits. Up to that point, you haven't been actually shown or encouraged to be able to change. And so I agree with you when you say we shouldn't make this all of us. But it's also part of us. And the more that I talk about my friend Chica getting killed, it's I don't feel the same way. Like, and the last part I'll share about this is hers was April 8th, 2006. I used to start having more and more night terrors in February to late January, and it would go all the way up until June, July. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting ready to try to get into it. And then all of a sudden, it was just like these ebbs and flows. But the more that I've actually learned how to understand it, the more that it'll get centralized to one day, but it really isn't because it's part of my story. It was actually impacting me, and I could spread load it across it so it's not as intense. I don't need to use something to cope. But that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, I think I would never tell anybody not to take medication, but you kind of talked about the alcohol being something that dulls those senses, so you're able to go or talk about the situation. Same with marijuana, and I really have struggled with, if I'm prescribed something, like I really don't want to take it. I hate putting pills in because I feel like they mask those symptoms rather than solving the root issue. Uh, so I've always kind of looked at, you talked a little bit about the other modalities of healing. And so that's something like even our diet can make a huge impact on our mental health. And so, I mean, you start cutting out things like sugar. I mean, I would challenge anybody who's got any kind of mental health or depression, anxiety, any of those things, just cut out sugar for a month and just see what it does for you. Uh, and it's crazy how much of an impact just changing a little bit of your lifestyle can have rather than taking a pill to cover the symptoms. Now, if there's a pill that's fixing the issue, you have by all means take it. And if it's something that's masking the symptoms, maybe look at your lifestyle and see if there's something you can change in that to overcome it. But those dates, I mean, for me, it's April 23rd every year. It is one of those dates I really like your perspective on that of spreading that out for the rest of the time. So it's not this traumatic date every single year. It's something that you can out throughout. And so I still wear my KAA bracelets for it. Was actually two team leaders that were killed on the same mission. And uh, I've really talked to my counselor that I go see about when can I take these off. To me, I feel like it's one of these things where I've got to keep their memory going and tell their story. And people ask me about the bracelets, so that gives me an opportunity to tell their story. At the same time, it is a daily reminder of their sacrifice and loss. And so I've got a plan sometime here in the next year that I'm gonna actually go to their graves and leave these bracelets there as a way to just kind of put that into the historical perspective rather than something I would with every single day. I still will do everything I can to make sure their loss or their sacrifice isn't forgotten, but it's not something that is weighing me down for years and years to come.
So I do want to just jump into that, and then I also want to talk about the pharmaceuticals. So April 8th, what I've done with mine, and I don't know if you're open to this, but April 8th, I tried things outside my comfort zone. And the way I look at it is that they can't live anymore, but I'm going to continue to live for them. So I checked out the symphony over here, and then I started living more of my life in a lot of different ways. Where I checked out the symphony, I really fell in love with Billy Symphony. I come from a lower socioeconomic. Symphony is not part of my thing. I've been out to plays. I've been out to a lot of things that are outside my comfort zone. And I started learning how to live life. And then instead of just being around just that day, I started to, that's what usually when I do the bigger things, but I do a lot of smaller things throughout the day. So even though I'm not consciously thinking about Chica, I'm thinking about how can I actually live. The the way that you look at it, and I've seen this with everybody else, and how you're handling it, it's how you're handling it. How we have love for people. We say, oh, they're going to be forgotten in time. And like, I want to hold on to this because I don't want them to be forgotten. And at the same time, it's like they're not forgotten. They're here. I'm going to continue to keep living on and being the best version of myself. And then I'm going to continue to keep sharing that type of love. And when it's appropriate, I want to use part of that story to actually help people realize it's okay to open up about it. Right? Because the ebbs and flows, they are hard on our family, on our kids, on our wives, our parents, our animals.
Yeah.
We become very radioactive because we are just holding on to all this energy and it's becoming nuclear. So when you do decide to make that time, you're going to definitely pay homage, but you have been paying homage. It shapes who you are today, and you're able to still continue to give back. The pharmaceuticals, so I had the same perception of you of here's a pill, here's all the stuff, and I 100% agree about the diet. Cutting out the inflammation, cutting out the sugar really, really impacts the brain. It impacts the way that we look at stuff. Same thing with cutting out the news, cutting out like bad types of music. But you mentioned something before about the exposure. So if I was actually, so I was on Wellbutrin and Buspar for a while. So anti-anxiety, antidepressant. And the best way I explain it to somebody is remembering the pH scale. So going closer to 1 is more acidic, going closer to 14 is more basic. The closer you go to both of them, they're both very caustic. 7 is the neutral, and water is 7.1. And when we're actually there, what it does, that's where we want to do. We want to be towards that homeostasis area. So the anti-anxiety and antidepressant actually limits the volatility of your swings. So you're not having those huge emotional responses. But going back to that exposure, you're able to now talk about it. What I was not taught, I don't know if you were taught by this by your psychiatrist or your nurse practitioner, we're on this to be able to learn how to talk about our issues. And then we can be able to wean off of them, especially when it's like just a huge rooted into trauma because we're having symptoms. Schizophrenia is a very different thing. Bipolar is a very different thing. Certain people have looked into like health reasons and has changed the symptoms of their bipolar and also changed the symptoms of their schizophrenia. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but there's a lot of changes. When we're able to now talk about this, for instance, April 23rd for you, April 28th for me, instead of actually like all talk about and shooting off the friggin' rails, like all of a sudden I'm able to actually spread it because I can manage my emotions. How are my behaviors changing? And how is my daily life actually being impacted? Am I sitting on sitting on the couch and just watching Fox News or CNN or whatever you want to throw out there and getting super emotionally enhanced? So now I can't handle just the slightest little bit of friction. It's the other thing I'll say is too is the kindness because you love your buddies. You love your buddies in a sense that other people will never understand. When you're in a firefight, you're getting round shot at you. It's probably the most intimate and personal experience you can ever have with people because it's a very, very small amount of time. And you don't realize that these guys that you went with, that you bled with, that you sweated with, these are the guys that they were with you the whole way. And I didn't have to watch my back because they had it. They didn't have to watch their back because I had it. And you're meeting them with love and respect. And coming into the civilian world, people don't understand this all the way is that, well, I could sleep on a paved road, but I can't sleep in my bed. Well, I don't have my buddies watching me. I don't have somebody pulling fire watching me. I don't have, if I actually let down and go to sleep, I know I got somebody else that's got my back. Yeah. Just like when you got people pulling duty over at the barracks, you got somebody else providing fire watch for you. Even though it might sound so stupid and so trivial that you're safe, you're on a military base, you got your boys with you.
Right. Yeah, and that's something when I first got out, I ended up going back to or went to college, and I struggled so bad in college because of coming off of those deployments and those experiences that you just described. I mean, you're getting ordered in the middle of the night or the middle of the day, and you just roll over and go back to sleep, or you just have these. I mean, for me, for Jason and Ronald Kubik, I mean, we were in the same tent. I mean, Jason was in the same tent. Kubik was in another one, but it was, I mean, one day that they're, one day they're not, and there was no. We talked earlier about processing time or anything. You're just right back at it, but to go, I mean, through all the training together, I mean, literally living together for 6 months, seeing each other, being 3 foot away from each other in a tent, to, you know, combat with them, and then them being gone, and then everybody else still being there though, and you're still in it with them. You still have that support group, but then you get out of the military, and you've got people who are worried about their phones, or they're worried about, just the most trivial things, especially in college when you're 24, having that military life experience, being in third world countries where they didn't have a cell phone, or if they do, it's a flip phone or a brick phone. And they've got their smartphone here now in the United States, and they're mad because they don't the newest release of it or something. And so going to college and just hearing all these people talk about these trivial, or to me, they were very trivial. To them, they were super important. And um, just trying to process that, I struggle with that. huge when I first got back. I was talking to somebody not so long ago, maybe 2 months ago, about that same thing, and they were like, "Well, that's why we did it, though. Is we went on these deployments so the people back home didn't have to worry about those things. We and maybe that's why she did it. It wasn't necessarily that's why everybody in the military does it, but that gave me a different perspective that even 10 years later, after getting out of the military, that I didn't necessarily think about as like it's a good thing that some of these people don't have those traumas, those experiences, and have that because I wouldn't want anybody else to have those things, and they've got their own to deal with. It's abuse or childhood abuse or relationship abuse or anything. Finances, whatever it is, everybody's got their own thing to worry about that you're not necessarily aware of. And that's, I can't remember what the principle is called, but it's like you're driving down the road and somebody, swerves all over the road and cuts you off, and you're focused on them being an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
But if you change your mindset and say, like, man, I wonder what's going on with them today. Like, did they just spill hot coffee in their lap, or did they just get a phone call from their mom and they're diagnosed with cancer or something? Like, if you have that mindset, the way you view people, just changes dramatically. So that's a principle I would encourage everybody to try, uh, even if it's for a week, because it's hard. Sometimes it's very hard when somebody cuts you off on their phone in the middle of Walmart, and you're trying to do whatever you need to do. And if you have that perspective of what are they going through today, what's going on in their life, that's making them do this thing that ticks me off. Uh, it gives you a different outlook.
You mentioned a few things about not like you talk about people driving or not paying attention, really no awareness. The military, we say keep your head on a swivel.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to continue to just keep moving, keep pushing. At the same time, it's a lot of these people haven't been taught that, and we take these things for granted, but we also it's a curse and a blessing at the same time. Like the thing I was thinking about when you were sharing your story about your dad and you're escaping, going to Rangers, and then dealing with your buddy Jason and Ronald.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're losing them, and then all of a sudden you just went on the turn on mode. Like, hey, we are not just dealing with production; we're dealing with this because we're taking care of shit. And then that's how a lot of life becomes. We are not being able to have the emotional wherewithal. The idiot that spills the coffee on it because we're thinking that everything they're doing is very personal to us. Like, if I'm in a really, really angry mode, and then all of a sudden somebody goes, this fucking dude, I'm gonna teach this dude a lesson, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, why do I need to teach this guy a lesson? Why do I want to take this so personal? Why do I think this person cares about me? And then all of a sudden this guy did something for 5 seconds, but I've been thinking about it for a week. This guy doesn't even remember me. All right. It is just completely it's interesting. It's interesting how we hold on to these areas. Like what makes us feel like we're more fragile? And even though we're gritty as hell, like think about if something happens, your eyes are on the door. You're paying attention to everybody's like mannerisms. You're hypersensitive, hyper vigilant, and you're being that sheepdog, but you're always on alert. The fire alarm's always on, but nobody actually hears that noise. I thought about this quite a bit. America's a very fragile mental world. And the reason I say that when you go overseas or you deal with things, even some people in the hoods, you realize that what the world can be. And what we think about happens here in America in the order that we have. You go over to, say, Djibouti, Africa, and you're seeing what we're using as a jump site, or go to Iraq or Afghanistan, and you're seeing how people are living, that they're willing to blow themselves up just to be able to protect their families. We realize that our lives are just very kind of cushy.
Mm-hmm.
And we get so internalized. And yeah, my phone went off a couple of times, and it's we have these devices that make it all about us. And now we have increased it with ChatGPT. We have an AI that is our personal secretary that is there to self-soothe us and make us actually feel good. Tell us exactly what we want to hear, not about what we should hear. But now I also want to transition back. So I encourage you to think about what are some of the fondest memories you have of Jason and Ron. I will tell you with Chico, we were running through a typhoon weather over in Japan, and this female Marine, absolutely stellar human. She was with us, the search female rapids. Such a beautiful soul. And I remember we were running boots and utes, and she had this shit-eating grin on her face when we hear some of the dudes complaining about this running, and just thinking about what David Goggins would say. She was stealing souls. She was stealing souls moving forward. And the other thing I remember so much of it. So I would start getting gray when I was like 20s and up on top. And she was like a monkey looking for fleas in my hair. She was popping out the gray hairs. And we forget about why did we actually love these people? Why did we care about these people?
Right.
We remember this particular day of not actually having any more dialogue with this person, no more memories with this person, that somebody out there took away from us. Instead of remembering where did all this compassion come from? We had these guys yelling at us. We had these people motivating us. We had these people that trusted us, and we trusted them. Did we let them down? Did we miss something? What was it, what we did that actually created this death? And a lot of times we do very selfishly about actually looking at it. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong about being selfish, but what I'm saying is actually meeting with the person and meeting ourselves about what was it that we wanted to do for them and being able to meet our younger version. Like I had to embrace younger Will for many years and say, hey, dude, when we cleared those houses, did I miss anything? Nah, I did the best job that I could. Could the person have stuck in later on? Probably. Was my head on a swivel enough? It was on the swivel the best that I could do. Was all my gunners heads on a swivel? They were on the best that they could do. What was the rules of engagement? Who was actually the ones making the rules of engagement? Why were we there? And when we start to actually add more of a bigger picture to it, it changes our narrative. Curious. What's one good memory about Jason, one good memory about Ronald? And I know this might be a little bit emotional.
Yeah. For Jason, it's what has kind of shaped my leadership style. I don't know if you ever had to Halo qualify in the Marine Corps. So, yeah. So we're in a training kind of scenario in Fort Benning, and we're getting ready for a night training mission. And we're supposed to be getting like explosive ready, C4, some door charges, things like that. And we've got team. So, and yeah, need some background on Ranger Edmonds. So when you go into the Rangers, at least my perspective was, okay, once I pass the selection process, it's good to go. I'll be treated like a normal human being. And then you get there and they're like, well, where's your Ranger tab? Because you get a Ranger scroll. This is some education for the viewers. Rangers, there's a school, and then there is a unit. And so anybody, even Marines and Navy, can go to the school. Uh, I don't remember ever seeing an Air Force cat there. No air conditioning. I don't know. But you get a Ranger tab once you complete the school. To be in Ranger Battalion or Ranger Regiment, you get a scroll and you have to be selected. So I thought once I was selected, I'd be treated like a normal human being. Well, not so much. Privates are treated, yeah, maybe not the best, but and maybe it's changed since then. But so I didn't have my Ranger tab yet. I hadn't gone to the leadership school, so I was private still. And so I'm private getting what people might consider hazed, but I just at the time thought it was training. and it was good training. It got me prepared to face some of those hardships that we face in combat. But one of those things was, hey, who wants to qualify for Halo? Everybody's hand goes up, and all right, we'll get your helmets. And you put them on the ground. And what qualifying for Halo meant to our team leaders at the time was you put the helmet right in your sternum and you extend your arms and legs as you lay across the helmet. Very painful, very uncomfortable, and you better do as long as you can, because if you were the first one out, well, you might do some other qualifying, which in this case, it was, okay, you want to qualify, go climb that tree, hang upside down, so you're like a koala qualifying, and stay there as long as you possibly can, and you better not fall down, or you're going to be doing push-ups or run and touch the wood line or whatever. And so this is going on with a few of our team leaders, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Jason over there prepping charges, doing what we actually should have been doing. He's getting all the charges prepped for the night mission while the other team leaders are smoking. And he calls me over. That's kind of what started it. He called me over, didn't say a word, and we just start building charges together. And slowly, you see all these other team leaders stop doing the hazing or stop doing the training, whatever you want to call it, and start trickling over and bringing everybody. And we start learning about charges, teaching the new guys on how to build, door knockers or wall charges or anything like that. And it became this. I mean, he really didn't say anything except for he called me out of that situation, and just that quiet leadership, leading by example. I mean, that's a lesson that I'll never forget, but it's also why I admired him so much, is just without yelling at anybody, without really making a big scene, he was able to take this situation that was god awful for us privates to just such an amazing learning experience. Ronald was one of those team leaders who was doing the smoking and the hazing. Sometimes it seemed like very unnecessarily. So I don't have as fond of memories of him, but he still paid the ultimate sacrifice for his country. But I just remember the last night that we did get to see him and talk to him, as in the Porty John, as we're about to go out on mission. And he comes and swings open the door. I didn't have it locked because in their feet. And he's like, my last name's Furman, and he's like, "Hey, furry, you want me to come in there and help you," or something like that. I mean, I can't even exactly what he said, but it was like the one time that I remember even joking around with me without, hazing or something. And so it was a cool last memory of him, just to have that little bit more personable side that made me laugh, as a private, even though he was tabbed and I wasn't. So, yeah, those two memories that stick out.
Man, it sounds like Jason is a good dude. It sounded like he was more of, well, you guys, I'm tired of playing these games. No more reindeers. I'm gonna be Santa. We're gonna start building presents for everybody. And it, who you say?
Oh, well, it was also kind of their thought. So Jason, I guess, the previous deployment had, he's from New York, from Long Island. So he, that previous deployment had been what I just described all the other team leaders as. And I don't know what changed over there, if it was his own loss or what, but he kind of became this more quiet professional, or at least that's how I viewed him. Ronald was from New Jersey, and you can tell he just wasn't on New Jersey. So, yeah, I don't have any ill wishes towards him. It's really just their personalities. I think from there, who knows what their experiences were growing up, and I mean, both just really good guys and paid them sacrifice for our country.
You said you've done multiple deployments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about the first time you went over there, to the second time, to the third time. It really reshapes the way that you look at things. Like losing somebody, you come back angry.
Mm-hmm.
You come back with either I'm gonna shit all over my Joes, or what you guys call them,
Mm-hmm.
or for us would be Marines, or we're gonna actually work our asses off because I don't want you guys to die. When I came back from Iraq my first time, I went back to this unit or 9th ESP, and everybody else I went with, we came back, except for the few dudes that were just new to the shop. And we used to play this waiting game. And actually, it was very similar to the waiting game where we show each other the genitalia. And but we called it Browntown and Yoshihara. So we would actually grab somebody, start humping them, and it became like the zombie or vampire game where when you got humped, you're on the other side. Now you're trying to take people over to your side by humping the other people.
Yeah, there was a reason I didn't try the braids.
Range is it's a very interesting experience. I'll tell you that much. And we play these different games just to be able to really bring up the camaraderie. And even though it's very taboo in a lot of our ways of thinking and how we worked. And I remember Corporal Torres. Corporal Torres, he's a nice guy. He had a different leadership, even though he went to Iraq with us. He was in the cop shop, and I was mostly on the road. And working with security team and doing comp for the security team for the convoy, and then coming back for the company and actually making sure everything else was loaded up. It had me going a lot. And his leadership style was like, hey, I'm going to prove a point by doing something. And I OE 254, which is an antenna. And to me, that became my bread and butter. I would actually just take that and slap it up through the little hitch of the Humvee and then wire it up so I'd be able to shoot comm backups here. Really easy. And he wanted to try to show me a lesson. He wanted to show the guys a lesson. But the way that he wanted to do it was actually make me look like an idiot. And that's how I felt. That's how I internalized it. But now fast forward, I went to a bit team where I was with 10 other dudes. I was training Iraqis how to do telecommunications, military tactics. I was doing a master sergeant billet as a corporal. And I went back to CLR 15. And when I went there, I was with ATG, advisory training group. And I was training the other comm guys that were coming up behind me. And we had some reservists that were from Long Island, New York, believe it or not. And teaching them how to do comm, and he didn't really care. And I remember how angry it made me because I'm like, I don't want any of you fucking cocksuckers to die. I want you guys to understand this. This Blue Force tracker is going to be pretty much one of your lifelines. The VHF is going to be your bread and butter and very high frequency. And teaching these people how to call in 9 lines, how to call in medevacs, how to call in mortars, letting people know this is what you need to do. Because when we were getting engaged, one of the times we had mortars going over us one way, and then we had counter battery going over us the other way. And they had these things called an M-biter. It's a Prick 148, a little black radio. And we couldn't get columns back to the vehicles because they had chameleons in the vehicles, which is electronic countermeasures, which puts out a bunch of white noise and degrades any types of signals coming back. So we got mortars going over this one way, and we got artillery going over the other way. And the only thing I really wanted to do was let the guys know, hey, this is position as let fucking counter battery know so that they don't make us come think missed. And it was scary as shit because we're trying to engage the people that are shooting mortars at our convoy because we were actually posted up. And then there was another time we called in mortars. We had some dude taking pop shots at us. And he was over by the Euphrates River. He was on this like little grassy area popping shots. Went up calling in a couple mortars. No more shots came in. The guy was no more. But allowing these people to know about these unfortunate situations, like you're going to gaff off here, you're not going to know shit over there. And this is how you're going to get people killed. Like, so the way that we actually go about it, some people actually go about it with anger towards the people that they're training. And other times we go towards like, hey, I want a freaking furry over here to be able to make sure that he can be able to set up a silhouette on the door so we can just go right through it with CF4. Or, hey, we need to know, he needs to know my job. So if I go down, we continue to keep pushing. or we're going to actually keep doing these rooms like house clearing. Second guy is going to get killed. We're going to continue to come back. We're going to make this so much muscle memory, and you're going to fucking hate me.
Mm.
Because when you come back, you're going to come back and realize this is the reason that we taught you.
And we had so my first deployment, we didn't really have any attachment. I mean, we had a few like a JTAC and things like that. But my second deployment, we had a combat cameraman attached to us because we didn't have any internal to the regiment. And we're about to go on a mission, and our squad leader, who kind of got put in charge of that guy, he goes up to him and is checking, make sure he's got his extra magazines and stuff. And the guy has no extra magazines. Instead, he's got like what we would call lickies and chewies in there. He's got like some jerky and some candy in his mag pouches. And I mean, it was that same mindset. Like, I mean, he got for a new one for sure, but I mean, it wasn't because of the fact he didn't have that stuff. It was because he didn't know first deployment, and I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, Black Hawk Down, for anybody who doesn't know, I mean, that is around a Ranger operation. A lot of that movie, book, and what actually occurred. And there were so many lessons learned. It was supposed to be a quick daytime mission. A lot of Rangers didn't take their night vision with them. They didn't take extra water, didn't take extra ammo. And so, I mean, from that, it's like drilled into our heads, even 40 years later, that you've got to have your extra stuff. You got to be prepared for anything. And so having somebody show up and have, beef jerky in their mag pouch, and it was pretty unsaid. So yeah, it's even the hate, like what people maybe call hazing. I mean, it's for a reason. It's so that you can then react in those situations. So.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to do a little bit of a coffee, and then we're going to jump into mental health and the journey of Blake's journey. Welcome back. Get a chance to talk with Mr. BF. And did anybody ever call you Blue Falcon while you're in? No? So, well, getting into pretty much more of the nitty gritty. You got a chance to hear a little bit more about Blake and Blake's story and how he's actually got up to the point where leaving the military. How was your mental health journey when you were leaving the Army? Actually, what was the reason that you left the Army before into it?
Yeah, so before my last, so after I got home from my second deployment, I ended up fracturing my back. Ironically, well, I guess first deployment. Yeah, trying to remember the exact timeline, but long story short, went to jump master school. Actually, graduated jump master as a E4, and swiftly got promoted to sergeant after that, just because I had to be a sergeant to do jump master duties, basically. Corporal and then sergeant after that. But um, ironically, my first jump after completing jump master, I fractured my back, and I went on a 6-month profile, basically where dead man profile, couldn't even get in a military vehicle type of a thing. And suddenly, for that next deployment, profile went away, and I go on another deployment. And that deployment, my very first one is the one where Jason and Ron got killed. We had, several other guys get killed. It was the troop surge in 2010, and so a bunch of I had hot and heavy deployment, but a bunch of guys got killed. To fast forward to the third deployment, and that was in 2013. And I mean, it was more like police action. I mean, somebody didn't have guns or drugs on them, or wasn't like a known, IED maker or something. We couldn't really do anything with them. I remember very distinctly sitting in a briefing room about to go out on a mission, and we get a briefing by our platoon sergeant that if you get shot at, don't immediately shoot back. Instead, shoot a white star cluster, because that's an international signal for ceasefire. Because we've been having too many interactions with Afghan army. And I was just thinking, like, if somebody's shooting at me, I'm going to shoot it back. And so that was kind of like, if this this is going to get people killed for sure. And I just didn't. I was willing to fight and die for my country, but not with stupid rules of engagement. And so that was just kind of the final straw. One of the final straws. The other final straw is I got home from that deployment. I called my wife at the time, and it's 2 a.m. So I was like, she's just sleeping. Um, so I get a cab out to my house, which is like 40 minutes off post. And to get there, no cars in the parking lot, no lights on, getting 2 a.m. So I go knock on the door, no answer. And I'm starting to put two and two together at this point. Jump into the backyard. My dog comes running at me, going to eat me alive. And then realized the dog realized who I was and just so happy to see me. Turns out the dog had been abandoned for about a week. And I break into the house. We always left the back window open, so I don't have a window in my house, but go into the house is totally empty. All that's left is a bed frame, a couch, our TV. That was pretty much it. Can of tomato soup. So my first meal back from that deployment was a can of tomato soup and a bottle of alcohol that I went and promptly bought. And and so that really was like what sent me over the edge as far as alcoholism. I mean, having the loss that I kind of coped with some binge drinking. If I was getting really depressed from that first deployment to now got nobody because I lived off the post. I had the wife who left me, and then pretty much all I had was the dog. So my dog became my drinking buddy. The only other thing that my ex left was a Bed Bath and Beyond gift card that we had actually gotten from our realtor when we bought the house 2 years before. And so I took that thing and I'm spend this out of spite and go to Bed Bath and Beyond. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna buy here. And I'm finally wander around for 20 or 30 minutes and finally I'm like, screw it, I'm not getting anything. And I walk out to leave and I see right as I'm leaving a drink carousel. And it's like basically you put the bottles in upside down, do 3 bottles at a time, and then you pour your drink. So I buy this thing and I was like, I'm gonna use this and go to the alcohol store. I think you got a bottle of Jaeger, a bottle of whiskey, and a bottle of Tito's vodka. And so I take that home, plug them all in, and just drink every day. I get off work, get home, drink, and refilling that. And my dog liked Jaeger. So my dog was there drinking with me, which probably shortened her lifespan. Definitely regret it now. But yeah, I mean, really, that dog is kind of what got me through a lot because she was there when I got home, excited to see me and became my drinking buddies. And so, even those guys that I've been serving with, I mean, I lived off post, so I wasn't really around them. I mean, I see them the next day when I go in, but I mean, I also kind of went off the deep end as far as women were involved. So I mean, I'm on all the dating apps and just new one kind of every night kind of a thing. And that obviously is not the most healthy thing for anybody. Just trying to fill a void. And so yeah, I struggled a lot as the next 3 or 4 months before I got out of the military. Just kind of, I mean, it's amazing I didn't get a DUI. It's amazing. I woke up one morning on Main Street in downtown Columbus, Georgia, and I was wearing a homeless guy's jacket and music blaring, air conditioning full blast, windows rolled down. It's like 10 a.m. on a Sunday. And I have no idea how I got into my car. The car's running, mind you, 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning. The fact I didn't get a DUI right then and there just still astonishes me to this day. I woke up in the trunk of my car once because I didn't want to get a DUI. Apparently, I locked myself in the trunk so I'd go to sleep. And I mean, just some crazy stuff where it's amazing. I mean, I easily could have been that one who's getting other than honorable discharge because I, got a DUI. But thankfully, somehow I didn't. So then get out, move back home to Wyoming, and I go to job service and I like read my resume here, what I'm doing the last 4 years, and it's like secret security clearance and direct action raids and managed $3 million worth of weapons and ammunition or something like that was on my resume. And they're like, okay, well, you can be a security guard or a police officer. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do either of those things. So I ended up starting a shooting school right out. Um, Spent all my money on it, didn't know anything about business, and had a great first course planned. I had like 30 people signed up. I was going to be able to basically get all my funds back that I had just blown from my savings, and I didn't make anybody prepay. One person actually showed up after I'd spent all my savings from the Army on getting this course ready, and they got one heck of a shooting class, but it basically bankrupted me right out of the military. So yeah, that was kind of like my first endeavor. Welcome home to Wyoming.
So before we go too quickly into everything, one, heart goes out to you. Twice that happened to me. October 1st, 2014, my ex-wife left, and she needed to leave the way that she needed to leave. No hatred towards her. If anything, I commend her. I would have tried to convince her to stay, but she wasn't ready for it. My issue was too bad. And when I came back from the residential program, my ex left the dogs. Back door was open. The dogs were running in and out of the house. They were so happy to see me. So I understand that pain a lot. It fucking sucks. You come home, you're expecting to be whooped on, and
Yeah.
Well, got my dog. What was your dog's name?
Blue. Oh, Blue.
What kind of dog was?
She was supposedly some redneck kind of inbred dog from Alabama, but she was supposedly a golden retriever German Shepherd mix. All the other ones actually colored like German Shepherds, but she was like a golden retriever blonde hair. Your dog over here.
Yeah, it's hard about actually having that dog that walked you or helped you through it. And sometimes the dogs, they're only in our life for a season, and they live so unconditional. And I really feel like humans, we can learn a lot from them because to me, he's part of my world. To him, I'm his whole world. When I leave, he sits up in the window. So before you got here, I cleaned the window off. There were smudge marks all over the place. And it's just like you're looking at the dog. It's like, what the hell are you doing? You're not a cat. Stop sitting on the top. But then you're just looking at the dog. And I just took him out camping out to Alberta and British Columbia. He's just laying on the air mattress, maybe, just hanging out. And then the first couple nights, I had one that just kept collapsing on me. So I had to buy a new one. But anyways, we know that dogs actually have a different way about comforting us. And I don't know how your feelings are about this, but I'm curious is when I'm completely down and out, or if I'm actually really needed time to meditate, smoking a stogie or drinking a glass of whiskey. It's just don't want to talk. But just having that warm body next to you or just even in the same presence of you. Sometimes it's just more powerful than having another human there.
Yeah, it's definitely that companionship, and like you said, it's pretty unconditional. I mean, there was times where, I went off on my dog for doing something that I didn't like, and I mean, 30 seconds later, the dog's going to cuddle over next to you. What I've seen at Veterans Navigation Network is some real challenging situations where the person is homeless. They might even have their kids and spouse with them, and the whole family together would rather stay homeless than get rid of the dogs, because oftentimes that's a real barrier to getting them into a rental or something like that. Even though there's programs that can help them, and so, but I can understand their relationship with the dog is so strong because it was the same with me. Thankfully, I didn't have to face that homelessness with the dog. I didn't have to make that decision, but it would have been very hard to make that decision if I had, and I can understand why they would choose to stay homeless over that.
Yeah, it's just obviously you said when you were a young kid, you were in the back of a car with 6 dogs just laying all over you and you're laying up, keeping you warm. Well, alcohol, broaching this subject again, obviously Jaeger was you and Blue's choice of loving on, or maybe it was more of her choice of loving
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
But alcohol worked.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it suppressed some reason suppressed that anguish. So I'm not sure what it worked or how it worked, but it maybe was a coping tool for sure.
The reason I say it worked is because it allows you to not feel
Mhm.
those emotions. Because up until this point, the similarities is dad had the alcohol, mom had the marijuana, Blake not really being seen, being abandoned, and not just by his dad when he was in the army, but like his choices, but then also the alcohol substance. The marijuana actually not being able to show up for the love for you, your wife leaving the way that she did, straight up left. The only ones that are actually really showing up for you was your dogs up to this point. Even your buddies in the service. Getting injured is it sucks, man. It's like you kind of get segregated from the rest of your people. You get stuck out of it. You don't feel like you're part of it. Abandonment's been a huge part. And the reason I'm asking about the transitioning is because even though you're choosing to get out of the army or you're choosing these choices, do we really have a choice when it comes to how we're not able to process our emotions? And the dogs up to this point, or the mom being a dog catcher,
Mhm.
she's becoming the savior. And then all of a sudden, your dog is Blue is showing up for you, and she's saying, "Hey, I got you, bud. You're gonna fall apart. You're gonna be angry, and I'm not gonna judge you about what you're doing. These physical responses. I remember smacking the shit out of Smokey and Dobby, and I would get so freaking riled up. It was just a dog.
Mhm.
Dog licked me too much. Stop fucking licking me.
Yeah,
And it's like, I don't want to be touched. And then
yeah.
it's all of a sudden, it's like, no, this is what I really needed. I need this right now. How was it when, like, do you ever actually think back about when you left the army? Do you ever feel like the army also left you?
Um, I think about sometimes like if I would have been asked, like if somebody would have been like, "Hey, Ron, we really want you to re-enlist," I probably would have, So I was maybe a little bitter or something towards that. I, but the Ranger right now was very like, if you're not here full hard charging, then get yeah. I mean, so it was. I can understand that, and so I don't know that I ever felt abandoned, but I've worked. One thing that I've talked about with a lot of veterans, even non-combat veterans, is you're part of this family, you're part of this purpose, and you get out and like yeah, one day you can get on the base, you can do whatever you want, you're with your friends or some people closer than your own family, and the next day out and it is that snap of the fingers and you can't get on the base, you need escort if you're going to be in there, or uh, now you're 2,000 miles away or 1,000 miles away from your buddies who just spent the last however many number of years going through hell and back. uh, so that lack of camaraderie or that leaving sense, I guess, yeah, I mean, it's almost like a death and thing for some people. And those non-combat veterans I've talked to, that is that is like a huge sense of loss to them. And I mean, I think it's even more true for a lot of combat vets, but for any veteran, I mean, that's your family. And one day you're part of it, the next day you're almost kicked out or excommunicated out of it for 100%.
It's the surviving or the survivor guilt of did I just abandon my buddies? Did I actually leave them behind? Are they going to be able to operate the same way that when if I was part of it? The kind of like the slight bit of a god complex, but not. It's almost like the sense of value or urgency to be part of it. I lost one of my buddies, Vlad. He he was an infantry marine. He rented a bedroom for me over my house in Long Island. I ended up meeting this guy in college, and imagine being 29 pounds for 4 years, never going overseas. And you work at a cemetery with us. We're working at a national cemetery, the biggest one in America for veterans. It was over in Kelpton. And he'll end up losing his life because he didn't feel part of the group and the whole type of cliquish.
Mm.
And the guy was from Magadan, Russia, middle of nowhere outside of St. Petersburg. And such a sweetheart of a dude, but at the same time, it's you get trained up to do something and then all of a sudden you're gone. Yeah. Even when it's our own choices, it's still we feel lost. The how was your mental health journey? Because obviously you went to shooting school, bankrupted based off of nobody paying up front. Now you're over in Wyoming, 2,000 miles away from the people that you worked with. You got your dog, no wife.
Yeah. Yeah, thankfully I had very supportive family. My mom, like I said, we never like split. It was just something that maybe I internalized as far as disliking the marijuana and all that stuff. But she was very supportive of my stepdad and very supportive of me and let me live with them while I was kind of figuring things out. And, so I did some kind of different jobs local there, but I didn't want to be a cop. I didn't want to be a security guard. So I'm like, all right, I'll go to school. Even though I really don't want to. I could have gone full ride scholarship in high school to college, and I did not want to do that. I was tired of school. Um, yeah, so that's why I went. One of the other reasons I went in the army, but ended up going to school in Sheridan, Wyoming Community College, trying to do my 2 year degree in a year just to get it done. And so I just taken extra load of classes and at the same time bartending to make some extra money. I had filed my disability claim for the fractured back, and it got denied. So that's a 3 year journey, and part of the history of kind of why I started being in is I didn't want any other veteran to have to go through what I went through just to get the benefits that I had earned through my service. Um, something as simple as that, where I had the X-rays, MRIs, all of that stuff in the military, like I should have been not give me kind of thing. But anyways, bartending was not a good choice for me because it just added to the drinking. So I mean, if I wasn't working behind the bar, I was at the bar sitting and getting drunk. And the only really good thing that came out is that my current wife has been married, for 10 years now. But yeah, I mean, my mental health, I just was lost. I'd lost that sense of purpose. I lost the camaraderie, like even being around these people drinking a lot. I mean, nothing could come as close as what I experienced in the military as far as camaraderie. And so I'd say my mental health deteriorated quite a bit, um, and ended up, yeah, I did the bartending. I ended up dropping out of school because I just hated it so much and wasn't really dealing with what I needed to deal with. So I ended up in oil field in North Dakota, Montana, spraying weeds because you don't spray the weeds grow up and then they catch fire and you burn down well. So something needs done, but I just am sitting there, 14, 15, 16-hour days spraying weeds. And I was just thinking, how did I go from the Ranger Regiment, kind of the tip of the spear, super high level unit, to now spraying weeds on oil field? And I just found no satisfaction. It's a super important job because without it, those oil fields can catch on fire. But I didn't see the purpose in it. And definitely didn't have the camaraderie, even though I was in a camper with two other guys, in a man camp kind of a thing. And so I was just like, I got to get out of here. I got to do something different, or I could have become like a statistic or something like that into my life. And ended up putting my resume into all kinds of things like HR lead for the city of Sheridan, police department Sheridan, BNSF was a conductor. And then I did several applications to overseas contracting. And then I put it into a couple places. So I'd gone to SEER school when I was in the Army. And I was like, wow, this would be a really cool job. Um, but finished the course and never thought about it again until I see this job posting. So I put my resume in for that too, and ended up getting this job as a SEER instructor in Alabama, sight unseen. So at the same time, I'd done a psych eval for the police department and failed it. And, I don't know why. They said it wasn't a personality match or whatever from it. And so I have no idea why the psych eval. But with the job at SEER school in Alabama, it was okay, well, you can come down, we'll give you the job. The only condition is when you get here, we're going to do a psych eval. So I moved myself, my wife, our two cats, and two dog, or dog. Blue was the only dog we had. Down to Alabama. So I haven't seen, other than I've been to the course, but my wife never left Montana or Wyoming. So totally new experience for her. And get down there and ended up passing the eval, loving my job, and meeting a ton of other veterans who have been there, done that as far as this kind of transition journey. And they were the ones that ended up helping me. They were the ones like, you need to go talk to a VSO to file this claim. You shouldn't do it yourself. You need to go see a counselor because I can tell you, you're a little jacked up. And yeah, so it was those other vets who guided me to that. It wasn't, I'd gone to the VA, got my check-in appointment or whatever. Hey, are you thinking of suicide? Even if I am, I'm not going to tell you on this sheet of paper or tell you in this 3 questions into this appointment, and I have no idea who you are. So, yeah, that was kind of my journey, real sped up version of the journey.
Well, the white coat syndrome is really real. Of like, hey, if I say I'm suicidal, are they going to come over here and bag tag me and make me have self harm for a while? And think that this is, or they're going to shoot me up full of chemicals and make me actually feel like I'm lost. It's really real. It's the other thing too is how did it feel to be recognized by other vets that said, "Hey, like you're fucked up, bud. Like it's time for you to go see somebody."
Yeah, I mean, it was, I guess, I respected those individuals, getting to work with them over, 6 months or 8 months or a year at that point. And so, I mean, I was glad that they, instead of judging me, like we talked about that a little bit about the stigma, and instead of being those judges, they're like, hey, let's just help you. So that was the closest thing that I found again to that camaraderie that I'd lost in the military. So it was good. I mean, it was refreshing to know somebody had my back again.
Like when I worked at the cemetery, I worked with mostly Marines and combat vets, and about almost 80% of the people were. And it was just awesome to be around these guys because they look at me and like, you're messed up today. You're jacked up. It's and tell my my foreman, I'd be like, hey, I can't come in today. I have this is one of those days. Man, come on. I'm like, hey Rodney. He's like, all right, I got it. And he understood I was a hard worker and I could hold down job because of this. And he would be able to understand like he was a veteran himself and other vets are like, yep, you're jacked up. It's time to get some help. How how was it accepting help from a complete stranger that I'm pretty sure the counsel that you saw was not a veteran and allowing him to be able to open up your brain a little bit?
Yeah, it was interesting. The person who ended up being my counselor was through the VA, and so at first, so that one, yeah, he wasn't a veteran, but it was good. It was all telehealth, so that was interesting. But it was good. I was able to, start processing some things. It wasn't as effective, I think, as it could be. I don't think anything beats the person to person interaction. But it was good. It was a start.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, a number of years, and when I moved to Montana, I hooked up with the vet center, and then I did have another veteran that was my counselor, and had even been part of the ranger kind of spectrum in the school side, and so he knew a lot more about rangers and kind of what we did than the previous counselor, and that one I really respected and just admired and just could connect with a lot easier, and it was a lot easier to open up to him because he did understand a lot more about what we did. And so having that, perspective, I think it was, yeah, very valuable to me. And I was able to, and still am processing a lot of the things that happened. And I would recommend, talk therapy isn't necessarily for everybody. I think there's other modalities out there, but for me, that really worked. Being able to process and get over some of these things that I had been able to talk about years.
Like the therapist I see nowadays, I actually go see him and then we'll go down to about a once every 6 weeks. because I'm feeling a little bit better. Then I'll go back to him when I actually need a little bit more support, just a little bit more adjustment, let's just say. And the reason I'm asking you about your mental health journey is because when I started seeing the VA, this is back in 2009. My dad, I come back and I go back to Long Island, New York. And my dad's like, "Well, you're fucked up. I'm bringing you over to the VA." And my dad never really took himself to the VA for mental health. My dad was a Vietnam vet. And you could tell my dad really cared about me. And you could see those eyes that, hey, you're messed up. And I remember going to see with counselors and how much of the resistance I had. I'm just curious about your perspective. It was, nah, like you have a black and white receipt. You went to school. That's all you have. You don't understand what I've been through. Right? You don't understand how I feel. And I went to counsel to counsel to counsel, and then I saw this other dude because I was that perfect veteran. I would make appointments with you, and I wouldn't show up because I didn't see any reason to. I'm gonna sit across from the couch from you, and I want you to fix me, but I'm not gonna actually participate. And I had this one counselor. He was physically disabled at this time. He had I think he had MS at the time. He was a social worker, Vietnam vet, Army guy. Don't remember his name. I wish I did. But he was gonna be leaving Long Island. He was moving to Pennsylvania because it was cheaper. And he was the guy that was able to kind of fracture it a little bit in my brain. And then I saw one more counselor up at the vet center. My ex-wife didn't like her. She looked a lot like my ex-girlfriend before. And needless to say, it was like a relationship like change. And I saw this other one, Tara Brunswick, and she became my lifeline in a lot of ways. Tara was, I was at, again, go back to the vet. I want to do work, but I didn't know how to. I call her up and say, "Hey, I need your help." She's like, "Well, I got lunch at this time. Can you come up here?" And she would take the time out. And she was one of those people have the animosity towards the VA as a whole, but at the same time, she was one of those people that care.
Yeah.
And when I almost ended my life, I actually called her back up, and she arranged it for me to go to residential in Long Island. I was living in Colorado. I had a huge negative experience with them. That's why I was curious about yours because, like, I didn't know how to take help. I didn't know how to take help from people. I couldn't actually see the people I was hurting. I thought this was my life and this was existing. And yeah,
I think one counseling experience I didn't share was my wife and I went to couples counseling. With my current wife, and we went to this counselor who had no experience with the military, no real understanding. Talked about certain things being a battlefield. Like I could tell he's trying to relate, to me a little bit as a veteran, but just didn't have any kind of cultural awareness as far as the military culture. And it was almost one of the most devastating things for my relationship with my wife because she liked the counselor. I despised him. And it just about broke us, I think. But through that, I mean, we stopped going to couples counseling. We now thankfully found a course of spirits healing. We do that as our family time. And it's a lot. I think it has brought us. I'm not like the biggest horse fan. I had a biting horse in my childhood, so I'm not like the biggest horse fan. But I do like that time at Horse of Spirits Healing because when my wife likes horses, it's therapeutic for her. On the horse side, for me, it's just that set time every week where I spend with my family and actually connect with them. But what I would say about counselors is like if you try one and have a bad experience, don't give up on it totally. There's others out there. Like my first counselor, I really thought hard about going back to counseling. Like he was as good as telehealth could have been, but I didn't really want to share my story all over again with somebody new, build that relationship. And then I found this other guy that was even better, like way better, and I could actually open up to. But it's almost like chiropractor. I don't know if you ever go to the chiropractor, but you go to one and it's like, okay, well, will they do anything for me? And then you go to another one and it's like, okay, feel a lot better. Or massage therapist, like it's the same concept. Like some people are going to be better, or they're going to do what you need done more than others. And so it's just try out a few, like find somebody that you can connect with, whether it's counseling, whether it's the equine therapy, service dog, whatever it is, find that thing that you can connect with and that's beneficial for you. That allows you to move on.
You mentioned your wife several times, and you said marriage counseling. How, in your course of healing, how much does that change your relationship? And have you also noticed between the way that you and your wife now speak compared to how you guys did speak when she first met you bartending? This is 10 years later. Obviously, you have built up a relationship, but at the same time, I don't think we actually give enough kudos to our partners that we're with. But the other aspect that we don't give to them is that even when we're changing into the person that they want, the ambivalence, they're scared about us reverting back. Have you ever noticed that your wife, like the way that she supports you in the change? And I apologize if this seems too loaded, but it's a positive thing, but it's also the area that we don't ever really talk about the resistance to change of us and how they have helped us heal, but then also them scared of us reverting back to who we were.
Sure. Yeah, I think like every, relationship has its ups and downs, but, uh, she has put up with me through those ups and downs, that, were more my fault or my, you know, trauma, I guess, and dealing with it. And, she's been a huge asset for Vienna because she's watching the kids and we got two young children and uh, we've got I've got a stepchild from or a stepchild, a daughter from another relationship, so her stepchild. And so she deals with those things and, takes care of the kids and takes care of the house while I'm out doing the work that I do with veterans. And sometimes that's, talking to somebody about, in their life at 10 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning or, whatever it may be, trying to talk them out of it. Or it's, I got to get in the car and go to Miles City because we're looking at open office there to support the veterans over there. So, she's taking care of the house and support me in that way. I think you're 100% correct. If I had to deal with myself, or like a spouse in my situation, I probably would have given up a long time ago. So I think her being able to put up with my shit and take care of things, even though some days it's a lot harder than others. Um, yeah, that is a service of its own. The families definitely don't get thanked enough for, and that's why we did like our thank you for your service concert or last week, I guess, is really to thank you not just to the veterans but also their families for putting up with their shit. So, especially the ones that stuck it out. Yeah, because there's others that have walked away, and you said you don't necessarily blame your ex, but I might have a little blame towards mine because you sign up for sickness and in health, and so I definitely had some sickness that probably contributed to that relationship ending, but uh, at the same time, it's what you can sign up for, anyways.
I hear what you're saying, and the reason I actually said that about my ex-wife and actually my ex-girlfriend, like the big ones that were in my life, is that they tried. They tried so many different modalities. They tried to meet me where I was. They tried the enabling. They tried the conversation. They tried the pressure in so many different areas that they got to the point where, do I really want to be in this relationship with this person long term? Like, this person has like a breakdown and they don't know how to communicate, or they get angry and they start yelling,
Mm.
and because they don't know how to communicate. So to my exes, I commend them for walking away, and it gave me the opportunity to I almost got lights out, but I had the opportunity to change.
Yeah.
Like my ex-wife, I called her on January 15th to 21. I said, "Hey, I'm going to be going to the hospital," and we ended up talking for about an hour.
Mm.
And she's that breakout in case of emergency person. Even though we're not in love, we not been haven't been married for almost 10 years at that time. Actually, not 10 years, 6 years at that time. she still cares.
Yeah.
It's not like the animosity of actually leaving. And the area that I think about too is that when people meet, say, myself, the relationships that I had with my family in certain areas of my life, and then all of a sudden it changes. They're expecting me to behave or create those same patterns because I would avoid them during relationships or family gatherings. And then all of a sudden they see me now and I'm still the same flesh and blood, but I have a different way of thinking. But I have actually programmed them to react or behave in a certain way towards me. Hey, don't expect me to show up, or I don't really want to talk because I'm just emotionally unstable at this time. And not always just based off of the verbiage I said to them, but based off of my behaviors. And I think about the people that we love the most. Like, we show them, hey, this is how fragile I am right now. And then all of a sudden we're starting to build together and then we become more porcupine. And they have like, well, maybe if we can talk about this. And then all of a sudden they start realizing they have that ambivalence phase, that change. Now I'm changing up the relationship. Even though this is what I want, I'm still scared shitless that this is going to create, and then they're going to revert back. Or the fact is like now they're actually showing me good. Are they actually in this manic phase? Are they going to crash and go down even further into flames? And we don't always just talk about, we talk about usually the baseline, the negatives, but we don't even talk about the ebbs and flows of the growth. So again, kudos to your wife and kudos to your kids. And you probably have a very different relationship with your daughter from the previous marriage and how she gets to see dad now compared to what she understood dad back then.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more to that story. It's from a one night stand actually, and I didn't even know about her till she was 3. And so it's been a very interesting kind of relationship because I mean, you don't have, I mean, my kids now, my kids that I've obviously known since first, it's just a different relationship. And, aside from them actually living with me, but also that I didn't realize how important that, 0 to 3 time frame was. And now having a 3-year-old, I do. And I'm just tore up for sure about missing that for my firstborn. And then there is always the effects of being that step parent for the spouse. I mean, for my wife, that's very challenging because she didn't even know about the kid when we got married, and neither did I. So that's been pretty interesting development. So I mean, my wife does deserve a lot of kudos for sure. She easily could have left at that point because we didn't have any kids at the time, and all of a sudden she's stepmom to this kid that she doesn't even know that needed us to know. But she stuck it out, and so definitely deserves a lot of kudos for that. And yeah, for my daughter, I mean, it's she's 11 now, um, just starting a new school, and it's for her and for my wife. Neither of them knew me when I was in the military, so they don't have that experience. All they know is what I am now. But you're right; it does have its ebbs and flows for sure. Always trying to make myself better, but there's been where I haven't. And so they've gotten to see that, but they don't necessarily know the why behind it, what that was.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, I want to go to the why of Blake of VNN. So, Blake, you said that you broke your back or you fractured your back and you got denied the claims. But tell me more about VNN. Tell me about why you started it. And not only why you started it, but why you continuously evolved it into what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, between the denied claim for the fractured back and then, taking almost 7 years before I ever went to any type of real counseling, um, it was, again, not these systems that should have been kind of directing and guiding me to it, like what I thought, anyways. Like it wasn't the VA, it was other veterans. And so I had, um, so I did the SEER school, at Fort Rucker at the flight school there and did that for 3 years. And then I ended up doing some independent contracting as a SEER instructor. And so taking kind of all over the country with different agencies But in the gap between those two, before I started the independent contracting, I did some security contracts, but locally. And so one of them took me to the mall here in Billings, and I was watching one of the gates, that are in the front of storefronts had broken, and they contracted security to be there all night to make sure if somebody did break into the mall or got in somehow, they didn't ransack the store. So I'd get there at like 10 o'clock whenever the mall closed, and then I'd be there until 6 in the morning when it opened, or 8 in the morning. I can't remember. But at some point, I think at like 5 in the morning, they actually opened the mall up for people to walk during the winters. And so people are starting to walk and showing and like falling asleep, standing up because I've been there all night. And this guy's walking up, and I see a medevac on his hat. And I was like, "Oh, hey, you were in the military." And he's like, "How'd you know?" And it's like, "Well, your hat." And he said, "Oh, that's actually from a hospital that I worked at." Um, but turns out he was Army and Marine Corps vet. And we got to know each other, started going to coffee and things like that. But I started talking to him about my transition out of the military, and he had been a Vietnam era vet, and talked about the same issues. It was like, this has been going on for decades, and nothing has really changed. Like, maybe we've got some different tools and things in the belt, but really he had the same experience back then, 50 years ago, that I'm having now. And so I was like, somebody's got to do something about it. And he agreed, and ended up becoming one of our founding board members. And so we really set out to do something about that kind of transition gap. And so now with Veterans Navigation Network, we really just try to ease that transition. And that transition is a lifelong process. I mean, whether you're a Vietnam era vet, you're a World War II, or just getting out, I mean, you're in that transition process. You're coping with these things that we've been talking about the last hour. And um, yeah, we just want to be a solution. So you've got all these different organizations. You've got the VA, you've got nonprofits, you've got the city and state and county resources that are all doing their own thing. And we just wanted to bring all those organizations together in a network and really be this place where a vet can come, tell us what's going on, and we can connect them to the person who can actually help in their situation. Not just here's a number for you to call, but actually let me introduce you to Will. Let me introduce you to somebody at the VA who can help you with whatever's going on. Let me introduce you to this nonprofit and see what they can do. And every vet's different in what they need. And so, I mean, you got some that I don't want an introduction, just give me the number, I'll call them. And you've got the others that, you got to walk down that with them, or they're not going to use it. So we try to tailor it to the vet with our own lived experience. Because we mentioned earlier, pretty much everybody is a vet that works for us. And so have their own transition story.
Yeah, I agree. It's everybody has their own type of tell story. So talking about actually hand-holding or bringing people into the VA, and that must be really rewarding. But what are some of the more rewarding aspects that you have collectively done? You don't have to give individual experiences, but why do you actually continue to show up? Why do you continue to reach out and touch people? Obviously, you had your own trials and tribulations. One of the founding board members that you met that was a Vietnam vet. But what keeps you going? What is your purpose on it?
I think part of it is the memory of these guys that are on my wrist, but also, I mean, just getting to see those individuals succeed. I mean, whether it's, finding housing and employment, or, they're already, what a lot of people would say was success as a business owner or something, and they get to take their business to the next level, or just be better than when I first came in contact with them. I think just seeing those improvements with people is rewarding. I mean, it is what keeps us going, and knowing that we're maybe preventing another statistic, another veteran suicide, or working. We also work with surviving family members, and so helping them make sure they're getting all the benefits that they can after that loss. We work with far too many young widows with young kids who, the veteran didn't reach out and get help and ended their life. and try to pick up the piece and make sure they don't lose their home because that person was the sole income breadwinner. Um, so that just knowing that we're preventing those types of situations, knowing that we're making an impact, like I think veteran suicide prevention is starts a year before they even get out of the military because they can be set up for success right when they get out, not waiting, half a dozen years like myself, but uh, getting that connection right out the gate, knowing where they're going to work, finding that purpose again, finding the network for the camaraderie, like having that set up right out the gate, you're much more likely to succeed and be, whatever success looks like for you than somebody who's waiting, 40 years to take advantage of these benefits and services that are out there.
So obviously, you got something else that's coming down the pipeline. I'm super pumped to hear about it. If anything, I feel like it's one of the more needed things, especially here in Montana, Wyoming, and Alaska, since we have the highest rates of suicide. It's supposed to be coming out September 1st. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so we're launching our VNN Navigator program, and that Navigator is really anybody who can kind of help a veteran navigate, the resources available to them. But really, it's around that suicide prevention. And so there'll be 3 tracks to the training. There's going to be one for civilians, and what it includes is some suicide prevention training. That's called the VA SAFES model, but it's really around um, you know, asking the question, persuading them not to go through with it if they are feeling that suicidal, or not more, but then actually connect them to somebody who can help with the situation that they're going through, whether that's custody battle or loss of a loved one or whatever it is that's gotten to that point of feeling like in their life is their only option. And so the civilian one has that, or all 3 tracks actually have that. But the civilian track also has some military culture. So actually how to talk to a vet, like learning things about like what a branch is, like what branch of the military, what a unit is, kind of some of those common terms that a veteran might throw out there, but knowing a little bit about it and understand the culture a little bit more. The veteran track is, really just the suicide prevention training, but it's also how to tell your story as a peer. And so, being able to share with other veterans who maybe are going through something that you already went through and kind of overcame, and just how to talk to them with your own lived experience. And then the last track is one that we're super excited about for providers, and they can actually get 5 CMEs from completing the training. But it's the military culture, it's the suicide prevention training, as well as how to talk to veterans about lethal means safety. Because a lot of providers, they're telling you to lock up your firearms, lock up your medications or whatever, but they maybe have never even held a firearm. Like, how are you going to tell somebody that this thing's dangerous if you've never even shot one or know anything about it? And so that training is really for providers on how to have that conversation. And it's not about taking away firearms. Like, I love shooting, I love firearms, I love hunting. It's not about that at all, and I would never be a proponent for that. What it's about is just locking them up, keeping them out of reach of kids, keeping them out of the reach, or providing that additional time where, let's say, you are going through some bad things. That extra 30 seconds of accessing a higher level part of your brain to unlock a gun lock or something might be what is the difference between you making that bad decision. And then also around behavioral health and addiction. So providers kind of learn why veterans have higher rates of behavioral health issues. Why do they have higher rates of maybe mental health issues such as like TBI and the trauma that they might experience in the military? And so those different trainings will all be under the provider track, and they can get those CMEs for doing that training.
So I just want to pick apart a little bit. Obviously, you had your own stuff from growing up. I had my own stuff growing up. A lot of people that join the Army and the Marine Corps, they usually are trying to escape, but they have deals with abandonment of typically a lot of times the father figures. Either it could be from physically being abandoned to actually dealing with substances, and that's how the person internalizes it. They don't learn as much grit. But when you're actually broaching these subjects with these people, do you guys give lived experience, or is it just very course driven where when they understand it, this is what you should expect? Because you said the branches of the military, there's only four: Space Force, Air Force, Navy, and Army. The other one's a cult. We don't actually talk about drinking the Kool-Aid as much, but in all seriousness, I'm really happy about what you guys are doing. And I'm really glad that you guys are helping people understand a little bit more about the lingo, questioning. Because when I went to the QPR, question, persuade, and then reaffirm. And when you're looking at it, like pretty much normalizing, hey, are you feeling suicidal? Cool, bud. I feel you, man. Thank you for being honest with me. What's going on? Well, blah, blah, blah. Great. I'm glad that you can be able to share it instead of actually just shutting them down, saying, you feeling suicidal, like you just said before. Well, we put that white coat on.
Or even like the "That's stupid, why you feel that way?" Like, I think that's kind of a conversation that is hard for people to understand how to have, because it's not something we, the culture, society, talk about. Like, it really is how to have that conversation. And yes, to answer your question, there are lived experience examples in there, but also it's all evidence-based training. It's not like we just make this stuff up. It's actually in partnership with Psych Armor, which, if you're a business, just a person who wants to learn more, they're a great place to get some of that easy to access online training that's free. And so that's with this training, it'd be totally free to the person who's taking it. It does cost us. So, we're always looking for ways to raise funds to get this out to more people. But ultimately, we want people to have access to that training so that we can get every Montanan trained in it. Because, veteran or not, we have the highest suicide rate in the country for our civilian population, or in the top 5 year over year over year. And so we got to get more people trained on what to do in those situations.
Well, the last one I'll throw in there, 988, called Drew Dry Runs. Practice it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just so I'm a QPR trainer as well, and something that I do in my classes is actually call 988 in the class so that people can understand this isn't like it's not like 911. Like, if you call it and you're not actually in crisis, you're not going to go to jail, or you're not going to have a cops called to your house. It really is a lifeline. Yes, it's for that crisis, but people should call it. They should actually know what is going to pick up when they do call the line.
Now, the last question I want to have, the floor is yours. Why did you want to come on here? Why is mental health important to you? And what is the message that you would like to share with anybody that's listening to this?
I think it's really just around destigmatizing. I'm tired of working with surviving spouses. I'm tired of seeing these veterans lose this battle. And I think what you're doing, getting this kind of campaign out there around normalizing mental health, whether it's men, women, whoever, like, let's just work together to become better as people and individuals, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever it is. Let's just work to be better, and let's do it together, because I don't think anybody can do it alone. So there's probably some people out there like David Goggins, but no, I really think your message is super important, and I just wanted to be a part of that message.
Blake, your new nickname to me is going to be Furry. Oh, no, I really do appreciate it. And like I said to you, man, I really do look up to you. I think what you and your organization is doing is actually changing people's lives. And I do believe that it's reducing stigma. And even if a person's a vet, there's their families, there's their friends, there is people, their loved ones that are always impacted. And I believe mental health is important across the board. I believe that the stigma has been really hindering people and their families from growing and actually being able to be present with their kids. The generational issues that it creates, that they feel like this is normal. Dad behaved like this, so I behave like this. Dad wasn't around. I need to get love from somebody else. And I appreciate your vulnerability with me today. Thank you, Blake.
Appreciate it.